Hey guys, my name's William,
My name is Jennifer.
and we are aboard Roughneck 6, which is a Lours 38 Open. She is a mid 90s version of the boat, and our channel, hopefully, will have us doing some upgrades that you guys will get to check out, and then eventually some travel on the boat as well. Really trying to emulate some of the great channels that we follow on YouTube every week, and we hope you'll come along for the journey. Ooh, face tracking. It's very cool. It's a cool camera. All right. Is it still tracking? That is really clever. Yeah, of course, we're on base, so there is a C-130 going overhead right now. But anyway, yeah, so this is a shot. So the camera's sitting in the galley, facing to the starboard side of the boat. And really, Jenny and I just came down here to, I don't know, figure out the camera more than anything else. This is more of a camera thing. Boats, I understand boats. I grew up on boats all my life. Literally did not live on land until I went away to school. So, and both of my brothers and my sister all have boats. It's just, from a family standpoint, it's who we are, right?
For me, it's something new.
Yeah, for Jenny, it's definitely something new. Jenny does not know how to swim, so that is something we've talked about. She loves the boat, but if she's going to be on the boat, I think it's probably important to know how to swim.
Yeah,
Definitely,
I know.
definitely a thing. So, but we've got a lot of projects that are going to come up on the boat. The idea, because we're based on the east coast of Florida, is to be able to take the boat to the Bahamas pretty much whenever we want. I'm very lucky. I have some latitude. I recently retired out of the military after 3 decades. So my boat is actually on a military base, which provides very inexpensive dockage compared to what we get here in Florida for the most part. And then going from here to the Bahamas really is not that far of a distance. We would probably go down the intracoastal from where we are, just to stay on the inside, and then pop out, maybe closer to Pompano or somewhere like that. We can go all the way down to Miami if we want, but it gets really slow once you get south of like West Palm. The intracoastal slows down quite a bit for us. Up here, not a lot of bridges. It's pretty open. We can run wide open up here for quite a long way, which is pretty good. So anyway, we will figure a lot of this stuff out. Kind of the genesis of this is trying to be, trying to fill a gap that I was struggling to find on YouTube. So I love watching like Gus's videos because he's a young dude and he just keeps fixing up boats that I think are cool. Whether it's, yeah, see, the camera's tracking you, but keep going. Let's see what happens. No, keep going. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Because for some reason it decided to track your face and not mine. So that's interesting. Now the question is, how do I get the camera to track me again? Subject lost. Well, you could say that about a number of things. So yeah, what we will do, this is a Lours, or Lours, depending on how you pronounce it, 38 Open, mid-90s. And for me, I was born in the 70s. This boat kind of fits an aesthetic that I like. And I see a lot of sailing videos, which I love, whether it's UMA or any number of these videos where I'm watching people do work on the boat and then travel with the boat. And I love it. I think it's fantastic. The problem I have is I very rarely see people using a boat that I want to use myself. And I know that's just kind of a niche thing, right? Watching some of these folks down in the Bahamas on sailboats, I'm like, hey, that's really cool. But my 2 oldest siblings are serious sailors. I am not. I used to sail like prams and things like that, Optimus, when I was younger, but it's really not my focus. I like power boats. I like a lot of the things you can do with a power boat that you can't do with a sailboat at times. So that's beneficial. I don't have the budget to go buy a 60-foot Nordhavn, which would be super cool, and I would love to do that. But that is definitely not in the budget. And you know, even watching those guys on Ruth Pearl in their, you know, quote unquote little Nordhavn, but it's a stellar boat, absolutely phenomenal boat. I love what they're doing, and seeing them go from the Riviera, you know, a larger Riviera cruiser to a Nordhavn was really interesting, and I like both of those. But budget-wise, I'm below that. So, you know, I'm trying to fix up something that is was very inexpensive to me to acquire. But as some of you know, if you've been around boats, like the most expensive boat you could have is a free boat. Boats are just a huge money suck. And depending on what level you want to achieve at the end of your, you know, restoration, modernization, whatever you want to call it, that's going to determine your budget. And then also where you are, right? So I still have friends over in the UK and a couple different places around the Mediterranean. And when you compare those prices to Florida prices, to Louisiana prices, to prices in the Dominican Republic, you just get a huge range of prices, mostly predicated on labor, but sometimes, you know, based on availability of parts. Everything on this boat is pretty simple for the most part, which I like. It's fun to have a lot of optimized systems that are, you know, Bluetooth enabled and connected to the phone and a bunch of other stuff. But there's also a lot to be said for being able to shut your engine down by simply cutting off the fuel. You know, that kind of thing, pulling a fuel cutoff and the engine stops. We actually upgraded the electronics on here initially when we got the boat because we had to. There was nothing that worked, and we needed to be able to move the boat around a little bit and know what was going on with the engines. And we have a kill switch on the engine. And the other day I had the engines running. I pressed the stop button, nothing happened. And my immediate thought was, I don't know what to do. You know, it was very easy on the old ones. You had like a little T-shaped handle and you pulled it up and it was connected to a cable. And it would physically, I think it was an air damper, not a fuel damper, but it would physically cut off the supply of air to the diesel, and the diesel would stop. And unless the cable broke, that worked 100% of the time. I mean, there's just no way that wasn't going to work. Now I've got a button with a blue light around it, and it looks really cool on the dash. But when it didn't work, I didn't even know where to start troubleshooting. I mean, I kind of figured it out, and we did eventually get it turned off. But it's through dumb luck, and dumb luck is just, you know, that's not sufficient for what we're trying to do. Boat needs to be reliable if we're going offshore. So there is a lot to do. We had some electricians on the boat for a year. Now, I was not around for part of that time. I was still active duty in the Army, so I wasn't 100% available. And I told them, I said, hey, there's no rush. You know, you can have, you know, price, quality, or time, right? I said, give me a decent price and good quality, and I won't worry about the time. And so they took a year to do some things that really shouldn't have taken that long, but it didn't matter because we weren't really getting after anything else. However, at the end of the day, it does look like some of the things they did aren't working exactly as they should. I don't know if that's getting picked up in the mic, but there's a Coast Guard helicopter going overhead. So I actually had a diesel mechanic down here the other day from Melbourne Marine. Great guy named Dave. Phenomenal guy, really. Great mechanic, honest guy. You know, and the first thing he did when he took a look at the engines was say, oh, you got a lot of stuff to do. You got a lot of work ahead of you. And then he started talking about money. Now, from his perspective, he basically said without saying, it's not worth doing what you want to do to this boat. And I said, yep, I got it. I understand that. But the channel is, you know, somewhat based on what we're going to be doing to the boat. we decided to do it to document things because we've actually already been working on the boat for a year. And I say we, it was the electricians. I wasn't around. But we didn't capture video footage of the day we got the boat, the condition the boat was in on day one. And I wish we had. So we decided, you know, let's capture everything that we're doing. Somebody's probably going to be interested in it. There's going to be like one dude out there who's like me, who's thinking, I want one of these older boats, whether it's a Bayliner or a Carver or an old Hatteras, you know, or an old Chris Craft or whatever. But a lot of the time when you see people shooting those videos, they're either all on the restoration side, so the boat doesn't go anywhere. It's in, you know, it's in their backyard, it's in a shed somewhere, it's, you know, it's on the hard, and they just work on it over and over and over again. I watch those videos. I like them. They're interesting to a certain extent, but I prefer some of the other stuff. And it's interesting how I've found channels over time. The algorithm is the customer, right, is the viewer. So it works. So I wanted to see somebody working on a boat similar to something I wanted, and it happened to show me Bobby on Sailing Doodles when he was on his Bayliner, and he was working on something, and I watched the video for the mechanical aspect, and then I saw, oh, he's got a whole channel, and he does all sorts of stuff, and so started following him, and that led me to other things in a similar vein. Like I said, it does lead to a lot of stuff on the sailboat side of things, which, great stuff. I grew up around sailboats, but it's not my forte. It's not really what interests me the most. What really interests me more than anything else are power boats. So anyway, long way of saying, hope you take a look at what we're doing. We're going to get after a lot of projects, but the goal is also to, you know, keep the boat moving as much as we can while we're doing projects. Obviously, there's going to be some times when we just have to haul the boat out for a bottom job, or, you know, if we're fixing a through hull or something like that, there's no way we can do that in place. But we want to use the boat, and we just want to show you, you know, a little bit of what we're doing with it. Hopefully it's maybe inspirational to somebody, and they say, oh yeah, you know, there is a way to do it, even though you're going to get a lot of negative feedback at times, and people are going to say, oh, it's just not worth it. I look at it in the sense of that guy who's got, you know, whether it's a Model T or, you know, an Oldsmobile or whatever he has in his garage that he enjoys working on. No, it's never going to have the value. You know, the value's never going to change. It's never really going to increase to the point where he's making a profit or it makes sense from a financial standpoint. And that's going to be the same with the boat. It's never going to make sense from a financial standpoint. I could put $300,000 into this boat tomorrow, and I would have a good $80,000 boat. It's just the way it is, you know. She's almost 30 years old. She is 30 years old. It's a 30-year-old fiberglass boat with some nice Yanmar diesels, but they have a bunch of hours on them. One of these days, somebody's going to have to change those. It may be me. So it's never going to make sense. But if it's something you enjoy, if it adds value to your life, if it makes you happy, you know, from my perspective, do it. It's not hurting anybody else. I mean, it's supporting a whole community of mechanics, electricians, fiberglass guys. We're certainly kicking a lot of money into the local economy by owning an old boat that needs a ton of work. So from that standpoint, should be a good thing, right? It's good economic input. But anyway, we hope you guys take a look at some of what we're doing. If you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, you know, stick them in the comments. Early on, I know we will have plenty of time to read comments. I hope one day that, you know, we get to a point where we've scaled so much that reading every single comment is just physically impossible for us. That would be an excellent problem for us to have. But in the meantime, thanks so much for everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.